All right, I'm licking my wounds literally over my Giants, but it is Patriots Nation, and things, of course, have turned around.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Well, let's not, you guys are getting ahead of yourselves a little bit with this undefeated season conversation. Come on, man. But K-Mac is here, Kevin McNamara from the Providence Journal, who is most renowned, I think, for his basketball writing prowess, but has taken on the football thing in exemplary fashion as not a beat reporter, but as a column guy, and he's got a lot of insight, and I like hanging out with him anyway. So why don't we do that this evening? Good Friday evening to you. As many of you know, our Friday programs are pre-recorded. Actually, in case all heck breaks loose in the sports world, for production reasons, we had to put this show together on Tuesday. So, gosh knows, we're pretty loose about that stuff. We're pretty transparent about our broadcast schedules here on My State of Mind. And by the way, if Belichick got fired on Thursday, that would be like asking Kim Jong-un to drop his nuclear program. Neither one of those two things are going to happen. Rocket Man, right? But headlines like this have returned over the weekend. Last weekend, everybody's kind of calm, like you didn't think you could go down to New Orleans and take care of business, of course. Of course, Tom Brady doesn't rock our world at the press conferences, does he?
He also doesn't lose twice in a row.
No.
Very often.
We have him, don't we, Kev? Before we introduce Kev, let's run Mr. Brady.
Well, it was a good 4 quarters of great competition, and we got off to a good start. Did some good situational things. Still left some out there, I think. But it was a good win. To be 1-0 in 10-day break, or excuse me, 0-1 with a 10-day break felt like, a year. But it was good to go out and get a win.
There you go. So exciting. Welcome, Mr. McNamara. He is a chip off the coaching block, isn't he? I mean, I think it's a contest between the two of them is who could be more deadpanned about what they're doing.
He becomes more and more like Bill as time goes on. Although, I got to give Brady a lot of credit. He's very good after games, and Belichick is brutal for us, obviously, for the press and the reporters. There's not a lot of insight from the old coach.
No.
That's not going to happen. Where Brady will give you something to work with, and he was very good in New Orleans, not only on the field but afterwards. And we need him because there's not a lot of chit-chat in that locker room.
No. The first deal, you were here a few months ago, and we were talking about you're getting acclimated to hanging out on the football side. This is not the first time you've written about football.
No.
You've been at this for quite some time, but now having the job of providing background, insight, analysis with your current Patriots project, you're not doing the beat reporting, you're doing the column writing. You were saying a few months ago that it's going to be one of your bigger professional challenges because it's like getting water from a rock sometimes out of that group, right?
Yeah,
they're very disciplined. They don't give you. There's not a lot of controversy.
It's very different than anything I've done before. And I tell you, Jim Donaldson did it for us for literally 25 years and really did a good job. He was a very good column writer, and he really specializes in the Patriots. And I still talk to Jimmy a lot and bounce ideas off him, and he's been very helpful. And basically, he says you don't need them to talk to you. I'm getting paid to give my analysis, insight, opinion. It's an opinion piece. And, sometimes it's not 100% opinion. I'd be more than happy to, talk to Dan York and do a feature column, which I have no problem with doing from time to time. But as a whole, off a game, you write what you see. And, that's the freedom that a columnist has.
Well, getting advice from Donaldson is a funny thing because you guys have very different personalities and styles. Jimmy had no problem spitting out what he thought in a press conference, and he's clearly a guy who would find response to his way of asking questions. You're much more
reserved,
low key.
Yeah.
But there's more than one way to figure the whole thing out.
I will say I haven't quite figured out how to penetrate the Belichick mask, and Jimmy would poke at it.
Right.
He wouldn't necessarily receive anything in return,
right,
but he would poke at it. And I just, it's a path that just doesn't lead to much success very often. So I prefer to deal with the players.
Is it worth poking at? I mean, is it? Is it an exercise in futility in a sense that the guy will remain? I mean, I think over all this time, he is who he is, even though he doesn't share a lot who he is. I mean, right? I mean, you can't be that consistent in your approach without everyone just coming to figure out how to characterize him. Does that make any sense?
It does, but I come from a different path. I think he owes the fans a little more insight because he's the guy. I'll tip my hat to him. He's the best coach that I've seen in NFL football. Obviously, he's a legend here in New England. He can offer a little bit more to the fans. If he thinks he's just helping us, we're there on behalf of the readers, the viewers, the fans. And he really doesn't offer very much at all. And, you know, the act has been so consistent, as you say, that the fans don't seem to care.
No.
They accept it. They don't realize that this isn't how other
it's almost
operate.
Trumpian in comparison. We've only had Donald Trump for 7 months, but the bombast and the social media and the tweeting and the this week calling the North Korea
the Rocket Man,
the Rocket Man,
yeah.
and things that you just say you can't say that there, you can't say that there, you can't say that there, you can't say that there. It almost is so much it kind of rolls off. Belichick's like the inverse, the 180.
Right,
he says so little and has produced so much that you guys run the risk probably of the public turning against you if you push it too hard.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
There's no question. I mean, I can't tell you how many friends say, "Oh, how's Belichick?" Because they know he's difficult to deal with. Instead of, if he was losing, they'd be, "Wow, what a jerk." I mean, he doesn't help anybody. And I think that's the issue he ran into in Cleveland, and he lost and got run out of town. Here, same act, I'm sure even maybe a little more guarded, and it's accepted because 5 Super Bowls, everything's cool, right? So
you don't get a lot of insight as to what the animation level is behind the scenes, do you?
I don't know if anyone saw, I'm sure a lot of people saw the NFL Films videos off the Super Bowl last year, and they went behind the scenes and had the assistant coaches talk a little bit, and Belichick to some degree. And that was the football insight that the Patriots should promote more often.
Well, I didn't get to see that, but I bought a new TV and ran into my Amazon app, and I watched both the LA Rams season chronicle last year and the Arizona Cardinals the year before. And I'm telling you, it's Hard Knocks on steroids.
I see.
Hard Knocks is the HBO series. If you haven't seen this, you ought to take a look at. I mean, they are embedded for an entire season to the point where they obviously forgot the cameras were there.
And don't you learn something about NFL football?
Gosh.
I mean, that's what you're supposed to be providing.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And again, Patriot fans don't get that, and they don't seem to care. But
unless and until they start
as
losing.
they say, it is what it is.
Yeah. How long is this sucker going to run? The whole drama really is, well, obviously, once you get into the season, it's about the season. But the whole drama is, how do these two guys separate? That's the whole
There's no question.
thing for all of the Patriot fans, isn't it?
I mean, you got to go by, Coach Parcells used to say, you go by what you see. I see Tom Brady still playing really well. I mean, we've had some issues in the first 2 weeks here, but none with Tom Brady. So he's not going anywhere. I mean, anyone who thinks that Bill Belichick is going to promote Jimmy Garoppolo and let Tom Brady walk because he's thinking about a season 3 years from now, he wants to win tomorrow. He wants to win the next week and the next week and this current season. You can't let Tom Brady leave. He's too good. I mean, again, go by what you see. He's really good.
And his deal
right
runs
now.
through next season, correct?
Next season, but more importantly, Garoppolo, this is his last year. So they have to make a move on him contractually and face the possibility of paying Tom Brady a lot of money and Garoppolo a lot of money to sit on the bench. And that's never, no one does that. They don't have 2 high-priced quarterbacks at once. And that's this coming off-season decision.
Well, does Brady exit stage left? Should they win the Super Bowl again? Does he exit to go out to San Francisco and kind of ride his career out for another couple, 3 years?
If I'm Bill Belichick, I'm not letting that happen. I want Tom Brady to be my quarterback as long as he's playing great. He's playing great. Who says he's not going to play well next year? If we'll go by what we see, and we'll see how he's playing in December and in the playoffs. I think he's going to be playing really well.
What's amazing is how injury-free he has been.
Well, I mean,
incredible.
it's the diet. It's I'm sure you're on that diet.
Oh yeah,
right? Yeah.
Can't you tell?
You liquefy
I
and
do.
hydrate and all that good stuff.
That's your water.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're liquefying as well.
Tom does about 35 of these a day.
How do you feel about that whole diet thing and his persona with that? And
It's a little strong for me. I mean, it's very clear that when he does retire, he will be pitching TB12,
Right.
and he'll be selling everything that moves. And my guess is the people who walk around in the Patriots gear will be buying the stuff as fast as they can put it on the shelves. And he sees that. He's no dummy. We know that.
they win this whole thing? I mean, it's only week 3
Oh.
coming up here, but they win this whole thing? The defense has got some work that has to do, correct?
Anyone who says they're the best team and going to repeat as the Super Bowl champions doesn't. No one knows. What I've really learned watching football and really getting inside the football. It's survival of the fittest. If you tell me what the roster looks like in January, then we can have a cogent discussion of who has the best team. All I know is Amendola is hurt right now. Dante Hightower is hurt right now. They'll be fine by Christmas, but there'll be 6 other guys who are hurt. You just don't know who's going to have the healthiest team. If they're 100% healthy, I wouldn't want to have to beat the Patriots.
The margin of error, though, in the NFL is very slim, right? So it's all about who's healthy and who's not.
Oh, look at the Super Bowl last year. I mean, slim, really slim.
Right.
Or else the Falcons, win, and the Patriots were talking about how many Super Bowls Belichick has lost.
So this guy's going to have a little challenge because he's got to keep writing about this run the Patriots will have well through January. We'll be 2 months into the thing he's as well known for or more, and that is the college basketball season. We'll talk about that, which ought to be pretty doggone good coming up. Stick with us. Honestly, I think basketball fans around here are probably, for the first time in a long time, equitably excited about this season. The URI Rams and the PC Friars are going to clash in December, and that is going to be, the atmosphere again is going to be crazy for that. Looking forward to it. Disclosure, I'm the PA guy, so I won't have to get anybody jacked up for that thing. It'll take care of itself. Thank you very much.
Get some tickets?
You know what? Everyone's asking me for some tickets. Right now, I'm kind of like, geez, I don't know about that one.
Good luck.
I think it's fair to say that both programs and their fan bases have a lot to be excited about this year. We could have 2 top 20 teams fairly consistently in this deal, right?
Top 25 at the same time, I would love to see it. I think that could be a bit of a stretch only because of the schedules. To both coaches' credit, the non-conference schedules for both PC and URI are really good. They're going to lose a few times, both of these 2 teams.
Okay.
But they're going to be good in their leagues, and for the first time that I can ever recall, all the preseason magazines, which I have already, they both picked both teams to go to the tournament. Now that happened last year for the first time in 20 years, and for it to happen twice in a row, it's really impressive.
Yeah. And to have 2 coaches of blue chip nature sticking around. I mean, Cooley's life story at PC is just so storybook, and he'll eventually go. I don't have any doubt he'll eventually go. Maybe in a couple years when his kids are done with school, because I think he's got an itch to scratch. I think he's going to go at some point. Do you think he's going to go?
I'm actually not convinced of that. I think he could top out here, whatever that is. I can tell you right now it hasn't topped out in his mind at all because he hasn't had enough success in the NCAA tournament. Getting to that second weekend, Sweet 16 level, is clearly what he'd like to do. All these coaches would. I mean, that's the tournament defines their success. So he has some major unfinished business at Providence. They're building this Taj Mahal on campus for him, $30 million practice facility. It'll knock your socks off. And that's the toy that he needs to really recruit, because everyone else in his league and everyone else in the top 25, top 75 already has one of those. So Providence has had this run here of success without a really important piece of their, sales.
And is the dunk, no, we're talking PC now, is the dunk still a long-term play? Even this year, they've had some scheduling problems, which causes them to have to go into the gym, which is something they're going to lose money on, right? So they ever thought about actually building their own arena at this point?
They've thought about it for 30 years. You've been on that campus. There's really no footprint for it, and the city of Providence would never let them do it. Simple as that, because downtown works for the city of Providence. It really works well. So, you know, I think they have more issues with the Dunkin' Donuts Center, with scheduling, that have festered for a while, and they need to be smoothed over. And that's a constant issue because, you know, Larry Lepore at the Dunk is trying to, you know, make money for the Dunk. He's not catering. PC is a tenant and a tenant only. Doesn't, you know, they only play 18 dates a year there. So, and he's trying to fill it 365. So it's a challenge. But, you know, I think the Dunk has really popped in the last 5 years. For bad games, they're getting 8,000–9,000 people. So they're really doing a good job with the ticket sales and the atmosphere.
So since we're talking PC, what's the outlook?
They'll be picked in the top 5 in the league, which should get them in the NCAA tournament. I will say that their non-conference schedule is really difficult. Second game of the season, Minnesota comes in. Minnesota will be in the top 25. They play Houston down at Mohegan Sun in a neutral site game, which is going to be difficult. And they go to Rhode Island. And as even Ed Cooley would say, that's the toughest road game we play all year. It's the Super Bowl for the Rams. You know, he has to take a jab at the Rams. It's the Super Bowl for the Rams. And you've been in there. Whenever the Friars come to town, it's a totally different building. It can be Dayton, it can be GW, it can be anybody. It doesn't compare to when Providence shows up.
No, when we come back, we'll talk about that URI program and making that building a little bit more hot, because that's probably a win or two. Stay with us. And of course, that scene with URI doing as well as they did, winning the Atlantic 10 championship, and then winning a game in the tournament, and then losing to an Oregon team that, you know, went deep, gives a lot of people a strong feeling about the URI basketball team. Of course, you know, nothing's easy, right? Here's a headline from this week. Can't ignore it. Don't have much to say about it, but I guess they had a little bit of a rumble of some kind at the rap concert. I don't know. It seems to me that...
Did you go to the show?
No. Did you go to the show?
I missed it.
No.
I missed it.
We shouldn't be making judgments about different entertainment venues, but it's not a surprise that sometimes things get a little rowdy at a rap concert, right?
No. That's what people tell me, anyways. And I'm not surprised. I shouldn't say I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that it would be Ty Boswell or anyone on the URI coaching staff. But, you know,
reportedly he tried
happen.
to break up a fight, da-da-da. Who knows who's involved?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Unless there's some kind of, you know, major criminal activity outside of that kind of thing, I think this is the kind of thing that will blow by. This is not the kind of story that Keno Davis had with PC years ago when three athletes decided to just haul off on some kid. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happens on a weekend.
This is pushing and shoving.
Although the administration doesn't need this on the coaching staff. Do you think there'll be a change there, or what do you think?
Well, I guess we'll see what shakes out. Yeah,
right?
I mean, truly, I don't know much about you know, the situation besides obviously the South Kingstown cops didn't like the lip.
Well, let me ask you this:
this
story appeared in the news section of the Providence Journal. You consider this a news story or a sports story?
Oh, it's a news story. There's no question. I mean, it'll be in district court down there in Kingston at the end of the month, and maybe we'll find out a little bit more in discovery. But you know, South Kingstown police.
And they'll take care of business. Hurley is too smart to have any difficulty with the program. Thor Bjorn, the AD, and Dr. Dooley, I think, all will be in quick decision mode. If it's no big deal, they'll explain to us why. If it is a big deal, there'll be changes, right? What are you going to do?
Exactly.
But the season itself, I think, is very exciting. A lot of returnees. Hassan Martin, the only key player that's exit stage left here from graduation.
And Karan Iverson. Starter.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Iverson came. I should remember that. Actually, Iverson was more effective at the end of the season because he was less injured than Hassan Martin. But the bulk of that team remains, and the key, I think you were mentioning about atmosphere at the Ryan Center, is going to be able to take that, you know, as a guy who's behind that center floor mic, I can tell the difference between 4,200, 5,600, 6,500, and 7,000. And, you know, at about 6,000, that building becomes unplayable for a visiting team. And that's the economic and business goal and marketing goal of URI, to make sure that level of fanship is in that building, because it means W's, I think.
No, I mean, we've talked about this since the building opened.
Loud.
They went from 3,500 at Keeney Gym to 7,500 at the Ryan Center. They doubled the size of the building without doubling the size of the fan base. And now they're winning. Obviously, fans follow wins. But is it going to jump up to what you just described, an average 6,000 people? They haven't come close to that, really, throughout the history of the Ryan Center. Is this the year? I don't know. I have my doubts. I think a Tuesday night game against, Duquesne, good luck. I mean, that hasn't happened. Now, if Rhode Island is ranked in the top 25, has just a handful of losses, and we're talking about, late January, I would hope so.
Yeah,
but
so.
I'm not convinced.
Yeah, well, it's hard. Listen, downtown is an experience to go to the Dunk. It's dinner.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Everyone always jumps to
that,
comparing it against Providence. They're not comparable. They're in the same state, but that's it. They're not in the same league. They don't play the same teams. They don't have the same, history. They don't have nothing. It's Kingston versus Providence, and there's two distinct places to go to a ball game.
But what's your point?
Well,
it's not fair to compare.
I don't think it's fair. You want to compare URI to Amherst? It's a state university, rural.
So they're doing well, you're saying, for what they've. I'm not sure.
Well, people say, why don't people go to URI games? Because they do go to the Providence games. I don't think that's the argument. I think the argument is, what does URI need to do to raise their attendance?
Right.
And not say, well, Providence draws X. It's irrelevant, completely irrelevant, because again, they operate in two distinct universes, I think.
Yeah, well, they've got their challenges. State universities and marketing money, and there's all sorts of reasons and/or excuses. But I would think for the very extensive Rhode Island alumni fan base out there, this is big business for the University of Rhode Island. Dr. Dooley was here last week talking about what it does academically for the institution to be plastered across, national television the way it was last year. But here's the basketball expert. Fans in stands means point on the board.
Oh, it helps
Points on the board.
Helps you win games. There's no two ways about it. Atmosphere, there's very few sports where atmosphere can translate into wins, and college basketball might be number one. I mean, people say, hockey, we've all seen great atmospheres in sporting events on television. Go to the Ryan Center, go to the Dunk when they're full. It's hard as a visiting team. Jay Wright says Providence is the toughest place in the league to play in. Most people don't think the Dunk is a great atmosphere. Well, same thing at URI. The Atlantic 10 coaches, they don't want to be there. Dayton doesn't want to come in when it's full.
Not when there's a big crowd, that's for sure.
They really don't.
I got my Dayton color on. That was not purposeful, by the way. 10-second predictions for those two franchises?
I can see Rhode Island winning the Atlantic 10. The Atlantic 10 isn't as strong as it's been in the last couple of years because Dayton had a coaching change, as did VCU. I think Providence can be in the top 4, cannot win the regular season.
March will be exciting, though.
They should both be in the tournament.
All right, we'll see. Reed Kevin on the Pats, at least during the early fall. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Be right back. All right, lots to do next week. We're going to try to chase down some issues like hurricane follow-up. We've had a lot of storms, and we've had some predictions that this place could get whacked pretty good. We'll chase down the emergency management people on what our preparedness is. So that's going to be important. A whole lot else going on. We'll see you at 3 on the radio and WPRO on Monday as well. Thanks for having us, and have a great weekend. Good night.